An untrained mind is truly one of our greatest, if not our greatest, adversary. Massively impacts our lives, the results we get, our mental health, our emotional health. We've got to go to the mind gym. We've got to train our minds. And if we don't, our minds are going to be weak. The brain is amazing. When it's given the proper training and tools, wow, it becomes, instead of being powerfully destructive to the point where like it's causing breakdowns on the field, it becomes powerfully uplifting, and it helps us to feel so much more at ease and confident and less like we're living in this stressy, like survivalistic place of like what's the fear or bad thing or hard thing or mistake that's coming around the corner, and more like, oh man, I wonder what tomorrow is going to bring. I wonder what's going to happen in that game. Focusing on what I want, focusing on my goals, like focusing on becoming the greatest person that I can possibly be. And by that, I mean a happy person who's satisfied with their life now and is moving toward things that excite them. Welcome into this video. My name is Jen, and in this video, I want to share with you about a recent introductory session, first session that I did with a young athlete in high school. And I left that session feeling so excited and so inspired by the power of mindset training for all humans, but especially our young kids, like our teenagers, our young athletes. Because this young girl, I'm going to share her story, or some of her story. She had been struggling for, I believe it was 8 years. Yes, for 8 years. She had started playing soccer when she was 6. And so that was 8 years ago. And for that amount of time, for the entire time she's played soccer, she has been so hard on herself, beating herself up every time she makes a mistake, just like her worst critic. And it got to the point where she was breaking down on the soccer field from making sometimes one mistake, other times it was multiple mistakes in a row. Now, this is not uncommon. I think there will be a good number of you out there, parents and athletes, who will really resonate with what I'm going to take you through right now. Because as simply put as possible, mindset training, training the mind, training an untrained mind, which I never got mindset training when I was a young athlete. It just didn't happen. And when our minds are untrained, they truly, and I have experienced this myself, I'm sure you have too, whoever you are who's watching this, the adults I'm sure can relate to this, having had more years and more life under their belts. But an untrained mind is truly one of our greatest, if not our greatest, adversary. How we perceive the world, the beliefs that we create, that we adopt, massively impacts our lives, the results we get, our mental health, our emotional health. And just like going to the gym, if you don't go to the gym and you're like, oh, my biceps are just like so weak. Wish I could lift this heavy bag and put it up above my airplane seat, but just there's something wrong with me because I can't do that. No, actually, the only issue is you haven't been going to the gym to train your bicep, right? And when you go to the actual body gym and you train your biceps, you train your muscles consistently over time, guess what happens? With every single person, when you consistently show up over time, you make progress, you get stronger, you grow, you get incredible results. The body is amazing with how quickly it will adapt to whatever stimuli you do repetitively over time, and then progressively obviously add additional difficulty over time to keep challenging the body. But the mind is the exact same. The mind is the same. We've got to go to the mind gym. There's a book that I love called Mind Gym, and it's just that, like, just like going to the body gym to train the muscles, to train the body, we can all accept that. We've got to train our minds, and if we don't, our minds are going to be weak. Our minds are going to be untrained. And a lot of times what happens in the young kids that I work with, but 100% the adults too that I work with, their minds, instead of being wired toward confidence, toward focusing on what they want to happen, toward ease in their life, toward relaxation, toward self-trust in themselves and also just in life in general, toward solution seeking rather than being like focused on all the problems and getting caught up in the stress. Like, unless you've trained your mind to do that, a lot of times, pretty much almost always, what tends to happen is our minds unintentionally, without us meaning to, they get wired and programmed, literally connected at a neuronal level to be focused on what we don't want to happen, to beat ourselves up when we make mistakes, to worry about all the what ifs. And this is so common. I used to be there. I still am in some areas, and I'm still working on retraining my mind. But if there's one thing that you take from this video, it's that you can train your mind. You can retrain your mind. And that's one of the big takeaways that this young girl took from the session that we did together, that not only can she overcome what she's been struggling with for 8 years, not only that, but the way through, the primary way through it is to just simply train her untrained mind. So what I like to do is desire-based, or you could say goal-based coaching. All right, so a lot of people come to me and the parent and or athlete is like, I'm breaking down on the field when I make mistakes, or my confidence is really low. I'm experiencing a lot of like performance anxiety before practices start, or in practices, or in games. Now, while that is valuable information for me to understand what's going on, what are the symptoms, what is the present state right now, what I like to do, and what I would invite you to do if you're an athlete or you're a parent watching this video and you want to apply it to yourself, is first to start with, what do you want? I hear that you're struggling with this, that, whatever, anxiety, fear of making mistakes. That is so real. And I want to validate that. And it's very, very common. You are not alone. However, a big thing that holds so many of us humans back is we are not crystal clear on exactly what we want with so many details. Okay? So this athlete came to me and was losing composure after making mistakes in practices, in games, just like beating herself up so hard. She gets so angry at herself. And so I was like, okay, I hear you. But what do you want? How will you know? And how will you know when you have that? So what we came up with together is that she wants to build rock solid confidence in her specific position as a soccer player and the ability to be unfazed by mistakes. And I'm like, okay, what does unfazed by mistakes mean to you? How will you know you have it, right? When it's here, what will you be experiencing in your life? Again, building the vision of, we need to know what you want to accomplish before we can create the plan for you to get there. Because think about it. If you're like, oh, I want to go visit Sally, your friend Sally, and maybe your parent is like, all right, great. What's Sally's address? And you're like, I have no idea. Well, think of the address as like the goal you want to accomplish or your desired outcome. If you're not clear on what that is, just like if you're not clear on like the address of someone you want to go visit, like it's going to be really hard to get there. And if you do arrive there, if you just so happen to go driving randomly from your house and you arrive there, how will you know? Because it might be like, you might be at 1 Main Street, Chicago, Illinois, but if you don't know that that's where you were headed, how can you like celebrate when you arrive? Okay, I didn't want to go too deep into that, but basically, so important to know exactly what we want, because if you don't know exactly what you want, but you're struggling with performance anxiety right now, how do we know what we're aiming toward? And a big part of the trickiness of our minds is when we're struggling with things like this, what I've found happens is we're so understandably caught up in the stress and the overwhelm and the worry and the fear of it that we become so focused on that instead of using the power and creativity of our minds to be like, okay, wait, yes, this is all very scary and I don't want that and I'm worried, but what do I want? We forget how our minds have that capacity. So, first step, figure out exactly what you want. And to tie it back to where I was going, she said she'll know that she's unfazed by mistakes when she can make a mistake and she won't care. And she'll be like, yep, what's next? What's next? What's the quick learning here? And then move on. What's next? Refocus on the game. She also said she'd know that she has the ability to be unfazed by mistakes when she's fine with herself after making a mistake. In fact, she feels neutral. Okay? So now we're building the vision for her of not only what are we aiming toward, but her brain and body, without fully even realizing it, I would say, she's going to start to be like, oh, could I do that? Next time I make a mistake? Maybe. Now I know what I'm aiming toward. Instead of defaulting to the old, very habituated pattern of be so angry at myself and beat myself up and be so mean to myself, now she has an awareness of the other options that are available to her. Now from there, what I'd love for you to do is I'd love for you to identify what specific moment or moments does this issue happen in. For this young athlete, it was in both practices and games. Quite often, actually, the issue that a lot of athletes come to me with happens primarily in games, I would say. They are able to execute really confidently in practice, but something happens between practice and games, and they're not able to play the way that they play in games, the way that they play in practice. However, for this athlete, it was both practices and games. Very interesting. We're all different. And so I want you, as part of that, to get aware of, like, there are other areas where I don't do this. Okay, interesting. There are other areas where you're actually able to do the thing that you desire to do, even though you're not able to do it now in maybe soccer games and practices like this young girl. You can do it in, for example, maybe with your academics, when you're in school or with your friends. So that helps to break down some of the brain's sneaky strategies that try to keep you stuck. For at least for me and with the kids I've worked with, it'll start to try and convince us that there's something wrong with us. We're broken. We're destined to be in this struggle forever. And that's simply not the case, number one. But number two, most likely, like, you're able to, for example, like this girl, she was able to keep her composure when she'd make a mistake or mess up on a test or a quiz. Interesting. Okay, well, so this issue actually isn't as pervasive as we thought. So one, what resources and what perspectives and tools are you currently using in that other area of your life where you're not having this issue? But also now we know where to focus in with laser focused, present loving attention on the areas that she's not able to have this approach to mistakes and this confidence that she so desires. Great. So you lock in on the core moment or moments where the issue is happening. Now, here is the key part. And this is the part that I absolutely love walking my kids through. So the why is this young athlete, this young soccer player who wants to play Division 1, who's just like a really smart, highly intelligent person, why is this young girl breaking down when she makes mistakes on like a logical, critically thinking level? I think we can all agree that making mistakes, everyone does it. Even Messi, the best players in the world, they make mistakes. So, why can't this girl? Okay, well, yes, logically we can agree that it's part of anything you do, especially sports. So what is it that is freaking this young girl out so much to the point where she breaks down after sometimes making only one mistake? Okay, well, what it is the meaning that she's giving to the mistake or to the repeated mistakes. And so I took her through a process where I helped her to uncover the meaning that she was giving to mistakes, the significance to her. And for everyone, this is going to be different. But what ended up coming out for her, and before I go into that, I'll say, I always say to my kids, and even the adults who I do this through too, I'll say, listen, it's most likely going to get worse before it gets better. Most likely you're going to feel some emotions inside of you as we go through this. And if you do, I really invite you to feel them and allow them to come out and not suppress them. Because, in order for us to move through this, you're going to need to feel what you've been kind of pushing away for a long time, because you're going to start to get aware of it as we go through this process. She's like, okay. So as it turns out, the significance that she was giving to making mistakes were things like, well, when I make a mistake, I'm a burden to my team, to my teammates, to my coach. That means that essentially, like, all this time and effort I've been putting into soccer, it's for nothing. There's literally no point. Soccer is my everything. And if that's the case, soccer is my everything. And therefore there's like literally no point to my life, because the thing I care about, I'm a burden, and it's all just for nothing because I'm a failure. You can see how mixed into one or a couple mistakes was like a hugely burdensome, heavy emotional experience, and all of these beliefs about herself as a player and her future in soccer and in life in general. And of course she's breaking down when she makes a mistake. Can you see that too? And it was so like moving to me and touching, because she said, and I quote, as she was feeling the emotions of like the realizations of the beliefs that were underneath, like the meaning that was underneath her making mistakes, when she got aware of that, she said, it all seems so real now. I can see how the way I've been thinking has been getting me the results I've been getting. And she went on to say, I have so much more clarity around why I get so mad at myself. And I actually believe that I can get out of it. I actually believe that this mindset issue that I've been struggling with for 8 years, ever since I started playing soccer, I can fix it. It can go away. I can come back into wholeness and confidence. And to me, this just is the coolest thing ever. And I am like lit up right now just remembering this moment, because back in high school, I had a different but a somewhat similar experience where I picked up a certain belief, and that belief stuck with me for, I would say, about 15 years. And that belief was so destructive. And I wish, and I do believe that, like picking up that destructive belief, I'm grateful for it at this point. I really, really am. And it has brought so much goodness into my life. And guess what? I also wish that I had a mentor back then who could have helped me to unearth and get aware of that, and then integrate what was happening there, like help me move through it, and then ultimately release that false belief that was holding me back and keeping me from self-expressing and really going for it and being confident in my life. So to hear this from a 14-year-old who's we've already started working together, and we've already started teaching her the foundations around how the brain works, how neuroplasticity works, how she can rewire her brain. And then eventually we're going to actually get to the teaching her the tools to rewire her brain. Like, wow, as a 14-year-old, she's no longer going to be carrying that with her. And the impact that that is going to have on her life, because I know this young girl wants to play Division 1 and she has massive goals for herself and she has the biggest heart. I'm just so excited for her. But like, this is part of the power of mentorship and of mindset training and of coaching, because individuals like myself who, one, are trained in the things that you're looking for help in, but two, who've been there and have overcome the thing, whatever it is, and then can help your child, your student athlete to overcome it so much more quickly and not have to get, I would say, it just helps them to not stay stuck for so long. It helps them take the foot off of the brakes and save them precious time and precious energy. And so toward the end of our session together, she said to me, like, wow, I'm so sad because I realize I've been doing this to myself, being so hard on myself, getting so angry at myself, like just treating myself horribly for 8 years. I'm sad about all of that. And I said, I hear you. Like, I acknowledge that. And it's important. I told her it's so important to feel that and like feel what that feels like in yourself. Feel that sadness. Don't push it away. It's here for a reason. It's here to be felt, because like, of course you would feel that way after 8 years of being so tough on yourself. Most likely there's some also regret mixed in there. And I said, and when you're ready, when you fully felt that enough to the point where like you feel some relief because you've felt it, you've moved it through you, you've allowed it to kind of move and integrate. When you're ready, let's also acknowledge the fact that you're not going to carry this with you for another 8 years, right? Like, how cool is that? So I started building the vision of the future for her that she's going to start stepping into. And so as I begin to wrap up this video, there are so many takeaways here, but I would say the primary one is training the brain is just as important as training the body. And the brain is amazing. When it's given the proper training and tools, wow, it becomes, instead of being powerfully destructive to the point where like this girl, it's causing breakdowns on the field, it becomes powerfully uplifting, and it helps us to honestly just feel so much more at ease and confident, and less like we're living in this stressy, like survivalistic place of like, what's the, fear or bad thing or hard thing or mistake that's coming around the corner, and more like, oh man, I wonder what tomorrow is going to bring. I wonder what's going to happen in that game. Focusing on what I want, focusing on my goals, like focusing on becoming the greatest person that I can possibly be. And by that, I mean a happy person who's satisfied with their life now and is moving toward things that excite them. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I would love to know if you want to share what your takeaways are. You can comment those takeaways on the video if you'd like to share. Thank you so much for being here. And if you are a parent of an athlete, or you are an athlete who is struggling with something similar, just know, like, you are not going to be stuck in this forever. You can get out of it. Find someone, whoever it is. If it's not me, that's great. Find someone who you believe can help you. Start looking now, because there's no better time than now. It is so heavy. Like, some of the strongest people are the ones who carry around like these heavy, challenging things inside of them. And you don't need to do that any longer. Like, find someone who you believe can help you, who you look up to, who you trust, who is trained in whatever it is that matters to you, and start being really brave and make the decision that I am going to overcome this no matter what, as quickly as possible.